Imam Saffet Catovic has been a long-time U.S. Muslim community organizer and activist and environmental leader. He is the director of United Nations Operations for Justice for All and a core member of the Parliament of the World's Religions Climate Action Task Force.
My ancestry is from Bosnia and Herzegovina. We're indigenous peoples within the context of Europe, the Bosniak people, Bogomil people. People were victims of genocide in 1992. I'm a survivor of that genocide, as my father was a survivor of the genocide in the same region. Balkans get a bad name. The same region, World War II. There was a lot of killing, and this institution across the street was born as a result of that killing. When the world got together and said, we, the nations of the world, no, the Charter doesn't say that. The Charter says, we, the peoples of the nations. People have power. People have power. Someone quoted about the anti-nuclear movement. It was the millions on the street that shook the people across the street. In 2015, it was people mobilizing and organizing from various faith communities who, for the most part before that time, were silent as institutions in terms of the greatest crisis affecting all of us, in particular those who are hit first and worst, the indigenous peoples. The climate emergency. Scientists, religious leaders, spiritual community, environmental activists, and a whole host of other folks got together and shook these streets. And the result of that was the Paris Agreement, the agreement or the treaty that was signed by more nations in the history of this world than ever before, including the signing of the Charter of the United Nations. But like many of the documents, our sister is right, the documents have lofty words. The treaties, which are supposed to be agreements between people, how we're going to do business, have a lot of escape clauses, have a lot of unimplementables, because at a certain point it requires something known, going back to the P's again, right? The P5 is deciding whether or not that can happen. And the P5 always have a disagreement. If one goes yes, the other goes no. And they veto the decision for the world, for the peoples of the world. We created the treaty. We created the Paris Agreement. We made them make promises, but promises made are not promises kept. The promises made about a nuclear-free world, for those of you that are, I'm learning so much from all the experts here, and our young experts. I think Archbishop West has said it beautifully. He said, where were you during the Cuban Missile Crisis? The answer is, most of the people here were not here. But they're speaking about an issue with such strength and power and expertise that I believe I have hope in the future. But the old folks, ones with white hair, sorry for the ones with white hair on the table. The old folks are the ones who are saying, and I can stand to be corrected, we're no longer going to participate in those promises we made with regard to the future of this planet, with regard to a non-nuclear future. If 100 nuclear weapons are sufficient to deter a nation, what are we doing with tens of thousands? Makes no sense. And so the same formula needs to be used not only to call for, but to hold accountable those who agree to the treaties. We heard about ethical, religious perspectives on nuclear disarmament and standing against nuclear non-proliferation. Though that language, which is being adopted by some of the most powerful nations in the world, and I'm saying they're the smallest nations in the world, but their voice is power, is that it is not only the use and the possession of nuclear weapons, but the threat of the use of nuclear weapons, which is a war crime. Some of the smallest Caribbean nations have articulated this. The threat of the use, and I was told recently that Pope Francis said the threat in and of itself is immoral. So we not only need to get rid of nuclear weapons, we need to get rid of even the idea that I can threaten somebody with them, even if I don't possess them. Unfortunately, the real life practice of nations is, going back to the colonialist state, decolonization, is that if you have them, we'll leave you alone. Who's the we? The same we that was here in World War II. The same we that was responsible for colonization. The same we that was responsible not only outside of Europe, but within Europe, in my ancestral Bosnia and Herzegovina, for genocide. The same we. That we can be no more a barrier and an obstacle to moving forward. We, the peoples of the world, we are the ones who need to assert and hold our nations accountable. There is a mechanism at the United Nations to allow people to return to the promises they made and have stepped away from with regard to nuclear non-proliferation. The conversations have to begin, but a date needs to be set, hard and fast, and I think that's one of the items that we're calling for. No more dragging feet, no more delays. This needs to be done yesterday. And so, as the peoples of the world, we have the power, we have the ability, we need to stay the course. And we have a mechanism that is placed before us, requiring us to sign on as individuals and organizations and institutions to make that call, to put that pressure, to listen to the strongest nations of the world, which are the nations that are the smallest nations of the world, with the greatest heart, the greatest moral compass in this time of incredible chaos. We need to also remember the linkages. It is so critical, it was mentioned here several times, between the conventional and the nuclear. It's the same set of folks that profit from the nuclear, that profit from the conventional. They say that they make profit off of war. They make wars in order to make profit. Wars are manufactured so that profits may be made. And they're manufactured by those who do not represent the people. Those who do not represent you and me. And so my plea is not one based upon the sciences, the expertise. We have heard that here tonight. It's based upon a desire that I hope you share with me and share with others on this panel to continue the struggle. From the raging grandmas, listen, to the raging teenagers and the raging millennials, to the raging yet unborn, we need to make the change. And you guys, I have hope, because only a couple of us have gray hair at this table. You guys don't. You weren't around when JFK was there. You weren't around with the Cuban Missile Crisis. But you're taking on this issue in a very powerful way. And so I have hope for the future. We helped to screw it up a little bit, your future, but it's not over yet. Changes can and will be made. This is called actually the sum of the future, right? This whole big convening here. And you're the future. And last thing. One of my heroes is Shirley Chisholm. For those of you who don't know her, our Reverend knows her, right? Our sister Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm, you know her, right?
Yes.
For those who don't know her, she's famous for many things. She was our African-American sister. She was a raging granny and a raging, proud African-American woman and a raging woman, and the list goes on. But she had one of these phrases amongst her many wise phrases. She said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But she continued, because other people have made that same phrase. They made the same phrase. So if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But when you come to the table, like for example, this table that we had here, there were 9 chairs. That means there's 9 seats. So if you're number 10, you ain't got a seat. To put it in the American vernacular. You ain't got a seat. She said, that's all right. Bring your folding chair. Bring your folding chair and make yourself at the table. Don't wait around for old guys like me, and it's mostly guys, to figure out what your future is. You don't have to wait for us. I appreciate your professionalism and your diplomacy, but sometimes become a raging granny before you're a granny. It's okay. It's un-British, I'm sorry, but it's okay. It's okay.